There was a long pause before this start of the podcast.
This is Auto Collabs.
I don't know exactly
Well, it's
why.
because I know why. It's because Michael looked to the side and he had that face like he's about to say something. And I think we were both waiting for him to say something.
And then the only side of his face that we could see had that smirk. Like someone else better start talking right now because
it was just
Cirillo's
a polite leaning up to the microphone. Like I have to at least pretend I'm going to try to start this podcast.
I love those podcasts though, where the three of us are like, wait, who's going to start? And then all three of us are like, and then
right. And we all do it because we feel the need to do it. Today's guest, Greg Uland, Chief Marketing Officer of Reynolds and Reynolds, is also a podcaster. So he's going to understand where we're coming from. It's not often that you see like a higher level exec making so much content.
Yeah,
don't see that a lot.
I remember last year at NADA, I loved their booth because like everybody else was doing stages and podcasts and stuff from like these massive stages. And he's got like this nicely designed booth that's like all soundproofed. And it's, you know, he's got like, it just looks like a podcast deal. And it was really cool. So this man understands content. He's a marketer, but he's also extremely savvy when it comes to like the actual business operations. He ties marketing to operations really well in the conversations that we've had with him. So we hope you enjoy this conversation that we are having with Greg.
Hey, Greg, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to be here with you.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We don't get to connect as much as I'd like to, certainly, but it's always fun.
Hey, this is a step in the right direction. You know, one of the things I was excited about having you on the show is that you obviously make, or maybe people don't know this, but you make a lot of content. You're usually in the studio talking to dealers and other industry partners, just trying to build the conversation around a lot of different topics. And, you know, so we were wondering how you were going to show up today, day before Thanksgiving. Was it studio Greg? Was it office work Greg? And I think now people get to see the Clark Kent behind the Superman.
Yeah, there's many faces, right? You guys always have the same on though. I mean, I'm surprised you're not in the soccer scarves while you're recording too.
Oh, we can fix that. We do.
We can always fix that.
What is the story behind the soccer scarves? Why? I don't know. Every time it catches my attention.
Listen to this guy. He's like, okay, now see, I'm going to interview you. All right. You get one question, Greg. You get one question. So, you know, if you're watching, if you're not watching, behind me is like a stack deep of like 12 or 15 scarves, another couple soccer scarves over there. And then I have another 12 over there hanging up, and then another 20 probably in my
so it's a problem
over there.
So we have a problem here.
So I have a little bit of a problem. So two of these are ASOTU. So the reason why we chose soccer scarves is because we were headed toward ASOTU 2022. And we were like, what merch item are we going to do that kind of sets the stage, sets it apart, right? Nobody likes, everybody's got notebooks from every company ever, right? And we just started to recognize, I started to talk through like, what's the soccer mentality? Well, it's extreme fandom, it's community, it's year after year, we're redesigning and redeveloping and recreating. And there's always like an extreme energy and passion around soccer. And so we were like, what better than to signify what this automotive community is than throw a soccer scarf.
And it was the first one I ever owned, the first ASOTU soccer scarf. Yeah, because I didn't, I'm not a real soccer fan. But when I like was introduced to soccer a lot by Kyle, and just the energy of it, and I put it on for ASOTU. I never took it off. I had it on the whole weekend.
No, they look good.
All right. We'll have to send you. We still have some from 2022 and 23. We'll send them to you.
All right.
I'll make a note.
They look good.
All right. So we have to go back real quick because found out, you haven't always been with Reynolds company. Talk to us a little bit about exactly how you got into the auto side of the business, because it wasn't all on the industry partner side as like your role is right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it goes back quite a ways, but I will tell you with Reynolds, I've been here for over 15 years. I joined Reynolds in May of 2008. Wow. And and I was told by multiple people on many different occasions that might not have been the best career decision ever, to join a company that serves car dealerships exclusively.
Yeah, we may have heard that once or twice.
Yeah. So but it gives you a front row seat to how great this industry is, how resilient the industry is, how great car dealers are, how resilient they are. But going back, I mean, I actually grew up in an auto parts store, a retail auto parts store. My grandparents had a few parts stores, so I got to grow up working alongside my dad and my grandpa in retail auto parts, and then kind of continued in retail through college. And then after college, I started a wholesale parts business, delivery business, and then after that, I came to Reynolds. So been around automotive quite literally my entire life, but in retail automotive for the last 15 and a half years.
I mean, coming from the parts side of the business, it's, I mean, like it's rare enough that like an auto GM comes from the service side of the business, right? Have a marketing executive like coming from the parts side is, I mean, there's not much more ground floor than that, right? You get to see the good, bad, and the ugly when you're around the parts stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I got my first job. My grandma would pay me $10 a week to clean the bathrooms in the office. So that was my first gig. Scrubbing toilets.
I like it that the grandma's the one making the deal too.
I was actually thinking like this morning, I was having this thought because someone posted on LinkedIn about CRMs and DMSs in the auto space and how it's different than like the rest of the world. And my first thought wasn't like, how do we sell a car? Or how do we reach out to a customer that wants to buy a car? My first thought was the things that I've been through, and I'm sure like being with Reynolds that you've seen now, but also in the wholesale and the retail parts business, the things that are so dramatically different just about the parts business within auto and the connections and the integrations and the way that parts are listed and then the way that they're changed over time. And like, it's not just a straight up SKU number and all that type of stuff. Like, what was your experience and has been your experience in the parts side of the business? Because that's not one we get to talk about in the auto industry a lot.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I'd say, first kind of retail parts outside of, the dealership world, outside of the franchise dealership world, is definitely different, right? You have a lot more control over what you carry. You have a lot more control over what you don't carry, how much you carry. In today's world for a franchise dealer, a lot of that's going to be dictated by the OEM, right? And there's software that basically stocks your department for you. So if you want to have a parts operation that you have more control over, you end up going down the wholesale path. And a lot of dealers are really successful in that world, selling wholesale and delivering parts. And, a lot of them have very large parts operations that are profitable. But there's really those two different pieces to it. I mean, if you're running a parts department to feed your service department, that's great. And you're going to get the parts that you need. Most likely you'll special order the stuff that the manufacturer says that you don't need every single day. But when you're looking at expanding and finding new avenues of revenue and profitability, that wholesale world is one that a lot of dealers have found success in.
Does the parts department have its own subsection of buzzwords? Because like the industry has like one I hear. Here's an example. Like, how often back in the day did you hear the word obsolescence? Because boy, do I hear that one a lot.
Obsolescence and dirty cores. When you tell somebody about a dirty core, what did you just call me? Really be careful to pronounce your words clearly.
Did you get that SOP? Yeah, no, the SOP, the SOP
for your dirty core, bro.
So there are definitely those phrases that if you're not around it, you go, what are you talking about? Yeah.
So let me ask you this: over the last 50, you said over 15 years now at Reynolds, from 2008 to now, what have you seen as kind of the biggest developments, the biggest things that you've noticed being in a company that long? Because I mean, that's longer than most people's careers, Sure. So you've got some vision there over a broad time frame of how Ray, dare I call it, has evolved.
Well, first, I appreciate you calling me old without calling me old. That's a good
Cirillo's got a way about him.
Yeah, I got some grays.
He's got a real way about him. He always is
in
getting
there.
the backhanded compliment, insult.
Yeah, as far as kind of what's changed, I mean, I think the biggest thing that's extremely noticeable, and this is Reynolds, but this is across the industry, is just the sophistication of the technology. right? I mean, the things that we can do with software today that weren't possible 10, 5, 3 years ago, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, that's the big thing that stands out is how sophisticated the technology is. I've seen this company specifically, Reynolds and Reynolds, make a real strategic decision, and this is going back quite a few years, to focus on building out an entire retail management system for dealers. And there's a lot of different approaches to it, and we don't need to get into the details, but I would say, the decision to do that and build this platform and this ecosystem to run your entire retail operation on has really enabled a lot of those advancements. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's out there today, and I'll speak to our stuff because I have experience with it, but you look at things like DocuPad, and you look at things like advanced service back in fixed operations, and you look at what we're able to do from an online retailing perspective and having a single deal. You can really only do that with a single system. So that's been the biggest shift and the most visible one. I would also say, the way that we work with customers, work alongside them, and really partner with customers is something that's been really fun to watch grow and evolve. We've always, had a focus on our customers' success, but the way that we've evolved and really worked hand in hand with our customers, certainly over the last few years, it's been a really fun, fun ride to be a part of.
It's awesome. So there is all of this tech, and there is all of this trying to get everything into a single system or a single deal, or our industry has been obsessed with how do we have the tech to enable our people to do their daily job. When do we start talking about do you really feel like we're mapping that to customer experience? Or is it this innate desire to create something net new or to connect something that we have more pain for than the customer has? Where's the connection point there, do you think?
Well, I think there's that's a question that there's a lot of ways to look at. And it's starting with consumer experience. Are we mapping to it? I think the short answer is yes. But at the end of the day, you don't necessarily want to be reactive to the consumer experience, right? It's important to understand what they want, what they expect, what they're seeing in other places. But I think the true core value that we're going to add as an automotive retail kind of ecosystem is building experiences that are certainly great for the consumer that they may or may not know that they want, but also create kind of net new opportunities for us as a car dealership to really interact with our customers and profit, right? And create that value in every interaction. So when you think about it that way, and you think about, yes, we need to make sure we're meeting customers where they are. And quite honestly, I think a lot of us that talk about this stuff for a living, whether that's, we started by talking about, content creation, we're all consumers, right? And I think we're consumers every single second of every single day. Whereas, car dealers they're car dealers a vast majority of their time. They're consumers too, but making sure to look at it through both lenses is important. And it's, I think, a lot easier for a lot of folks to communicate, what it's like as a consumer because they live it every day versus what it's like as a dealer to try to create opportunities. And you think about what's possible today. Quick example. So we've probably all done this before, right? You're sitting around, probably the three of you, just watching you interact. I'm guessing that you talk to each other outside of these podcasts that you do. So you're sitting around, you're talking and thinking about a concert you want to go see or an album that you want to buy, something like that. And a couple hours later, you're sitting at home, maybe on the couch by yourself, and you're scrolling through your phone, right? And all of a sudden, miraculously, an ad pops up or a buy now button for tickets to that concert or, to download songs from that album. And we've probably all said it.
Well, Kyle's the only Swiftie.
Is he? Okay.
Don't you start with me on that.
Now, wait. Now you watch. You're going to have something pop up on your phone later today. But the point is, right, these kind of big tech companies, they have so much information about us. They can create experiences, right? Experiences that are great for us because I want that. And Kyle wants those tickets to that Taylor Swift concert.
He does.
Yeah. And for, whoever's serving that up to me, Facebook as an example, right? They're creating an opportunity for profit, basically. So you think about all the information these companies have on us. Google as an example, right? They know everything about me, certainly everything about you guys probably, but I mean, they know everything I search online because I use a Chrome browser. They know my calendar because I use Gmail. They know when I'm home and away because I have a Nest thermostat. They know my driving habits because I use Waze. What else? They know what I watch on TV because I'm a YouTube TV subscriber. All these things, right?
All your emails.
Yeah,
Goodness, yeah.
exactly. But in a silo, all this information doesn't do a lot. But when you tie it together, that's when they're able to create these cool experiences. And you think about a dealership and the information they have on their customers, right? They know who they are, where they live, how much money they make, who their spouse is, what their driving habits are like. They know a lot. But the real fun starts when you can tie all that information together to then create these kind of next level experiences. So that's a really, really long-winded way of answering your question, but I think there's a lot of ways to look at it, and it's really a blend of, yes, reacting to the consumer and what they expect, but also creating these net new experiences that are great for the consumer, but also great for the business.
You know, you have a really difficult job because, you know, obviously there's a lot of legacy around the company.
Sure.
Big company.
157 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize it was that many.
Wait, how many is it?
157 years.
So what did Reynolds and Reynolds do before there were automobiles?
So it was basically a general business forms company. So we would print paper forms for businesses to think like a general ledger, right? Something an accountant would use or a business owner would use. And
you do like checks, like business checks and stuff like you.
We still do. We actually still do. But yeah, so checks, forms.
Yeah, you two may not know this, but Reynolds still is the provider of the majority of the industry's paper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I did not know that.
Yeah. So like, and not just like the majority of the industry's paper, like some of their largest competitors, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but some of their largest competitors still use Reynolds paper to get things done.
Yeah. Well,
it's a nuts thing. It's nuts. Yeah.
As you, absolutely. But as you move forward too, we're starting to see clearly a growth in moving that paper into digital formats,
right?
Which actually makes the licensing a lot easier. So, for, you mentioned competitors, but no, seriously, I mean, when you have a form, a retail installment contract, right? The law 553, everybody uses that contract because it's recognized by all 50 states. There's, all the associated F&I forms are available for all 50 states.
Those are licensed Reynolds products with the IP is yours.
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
I love that.
See,
I love this part of the conversation.
I'm going to buy
Kyle those Taylor Swift tickets
like, what'd you do in the 1800s? Horse
not die. Right.
Yeah.
Well, but here's so let's map that, right? Because that's where it's actually the same exact thing. It's like the connective tissue of auto is just moving digitally, right? And so what you're saying about the way that Google knows everything about like what your interaction is to create really cool experiences, we're moving paper digitally. We're moving interactions digitally. We're moving consumer data digitally.
Yep.
And whether you're, in a single system or in multiple systems, the necessity for that stuff to be licensed or accessed or available quickly is extremely high. Like it is of necessity right now that we do that as an industry. And I'm sure like Reynolds is dealing with how do we make sure that the marketplace is ready for that right now?
Yeah, 100%. And the reality is with where we are right now today, take all the voices out there in the world that are, obviously positioning and kind of having their voice heard, which is important. With where we are today, the still the most effective way and one of the only ways to execute on tying all this together is to have a single system. Where we're going, I think, where I think everybody sees us going, and it's a matter of you guys talk about it all the time, collaborating and finding ways to work together, is you're still going to have a single system, right? And a single system that ties all these pieces together, but it's going to take in and spit out information, and the power is going to be in that that kind of cleansing process, for lack of a better word, right? Deduping and making sure everything's accurate, and then your word's right, Kyle, in that you want it to be instantaneous, right? It can't be a push and a pull. It's one set. So in today's world, you do that with a single system. But when you look forward, and as everything does go more and more digital, it's going to be extremely important for our industry to be able to have that real time availability of all of those data points if we want to be able to create these next level experiences.
It reminds me, just as we're winding down here, it reminds me of the CEO. This was a few years ago, the CEO of IBM, who stands on stage back then and says that data is the new natural resource. And then it pans to this room of people and they're like, that might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And you fast forward just a few years. And I think I heard something, Greg, where it was like every 5 years, we are experiencing 100 years worth of innovation. And so it's cool to kind of get your vantage point. 150 years of history at a company. There is certainly some understanding of how quickly and how rapidly innovation is happening. So I'm curious from your vantage point now, what is the next, based on what we've been talking about, what does the next 3-5 years, in your opinion, look like?
The next 3 to 5 years. Well, let me get the crystal ball out of the closet over there, I guess.
Give us the next 3 to 6 months.
5 months.
What does the next 90 days look like? Now that Sam Altman's back, what is the next 90 days?
So, well, all right, you're going to get me. So next 90 days, first of all, is NADA. So guys, get ready.
Right, we're ready.
If you weren't ready for that, you should be now. We're like 10 weeks away at time of recording. So I don't know when this thing's going to air, but yeah. So yeah, next 90 days, I think you're going to see obviously some interesting things come out around NADA. That's always a stake in the calendar for everybody. We're certainly going to have some pieces to that puzzle where we're tying things together from a data standpoint, like we've been talking about. But I think as we look forward to something that is going to continue to be important and potentially grow in importance is the used vehicle space. Honestly, when you think about dealers, right? Franchise dealers, they sell new cars. But at the end of the day, they don't have a lot of control over what their margins look like in that new car space, right? The manufacturer is going to set the bar. Supply and demand is going to limit what they can do around that bar. When you look at the used vehicle space, while it's not their core business, they do control a lot more of it, right? So you decide what you buy the car for, you decide what you sell the car for. The market indicates it a little bit, but for the most part, you have much more control over that. So I think you're going to see a decent focus there from a lot of different retailers. We've seen this kind of dip recently, right? Where certainly the bigger groups have peeled back out of that world a little bit. There's been some volatility. They've struggled there. I think, with everything, you're going to have those ebbs and flows. And over the next 6 to 12 months, I do think that we're going to see an increased focus there. And it's an important area for dealers to be able to be successful, react quickly, and have what they need to be successful.
Awesome. Well, Greg, listen, it's always fun to be able to catch up with you. We're glad that we were able to do that today and want to thank you for joining us here on Auto Collabs.
Always a pleasure. We'll do it again soon, hopefully. You guys can come back on Connected. We'll catch up, or I'm sure we'll see you at NADA too.
I'm so sad that the last part of our conversation, after we said goodbye, we stopped recording. We kept talking, and he told us that if you laid out a car deal end to end, it's 39 feet worth of paper.
It's brutal.
39
for one deal.
That
is where I'm sitting all the way to the end of my driveway.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically.
You've measured that.
I've got a good sense of distance.
Yes. He walks, he unzips the tent
and this
door,
is why, and then
39
feet of paper times a SAR of 17 million units. And
we're
you
to
start
the moon
looking
and back.
at
How far is it to the moon? Are we going to do this calculation right now or what?
Well, either way, you start looking at the impact of let's get that straight before we start talking about EVs, right? Like the number of trees that automotive knocks down every single year because we don't have our digital processes in line. And I'm glad that Reynolds and Gubagoo and their suite of companies is working toward eliminating or at least dramatically reducing that. And a lot of the industry is. I'm not saying it's everyone, but that's nuts.
I feel I'm doing some calculations and I think I'm doing them wrong because now I don't hear what anybody else is saying because I'm on my calculator app and I'm going 39 times, would you say 17,000?
17 million.
17 million annual SAR.
All right, so we're going 17 million. And now we're going to divide that by 5,280, which is, for the Canadians in the room, that is the distance of a mile. That's 125,000 miles. So if we can figure out how far the moon is, I feel like we have a social media post in the works. Everybody's
Here it
Kyle,
is.
how many?
How far is it to the moon?
230.
200. So we can get halfway to the moon.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can get halfway to the moon every year in paper that was supplied by Reynolds and Reynolds to the automotive industry. That's a good business proposition.
It's a great business proposition. Oh man,
The text,
that's
no,
good.
but I think, I mean, I always love when stuff like that comes out. Kyle knew when he dropped that in the interview. He was like, I knew that was going to get the two of you, right? We love stupid stuff like that. That's not stupid. It just shows you that the evolution over time of any industry doesn't typically like get rid of everything they developed up until that point. They were making paper back in the what was it?
Yeah, I mean 156 years, 1800s.
Good,
Yeah,
good night.
Well,
And they're still making paper, and it's still
contrast
being
this
used
against-
to close a car deal.
Contrast this against the news today about what innovation is. It's like, yeah, there's a lot about the open AI stuff, and there's a lot about just AI in general and different, doodads and gadgets. But innovation can also, like, for the operators out there, innovation is also leveraging tools and resources that already exist to create a new package, to create a new experience. They're looking inward. So like, my point being is, Reynolds and Reynolds is looking inward and saying, it'd be innovative if we just figured out a way to kill all this paper, save the planet, and make the process more efficient. And therein lies innovation.
there it is.
And
So
saving
it is.
the
Well, hey,
planet.
On behalf of myself, Michael Cirillo, and Paul J. Daly, we really appreciate you joining us on this episode of Auto Collabs. See you next time. Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?
Are we rolling? Yeah.